Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Before we take this journey together, I feel like there's a couple of things I have to mention. Number one, we are not here to recruit anybody into the military. And number two, what we're here to do is tell stories in an entertaining way. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering who I am, well, that's me. I'm the CEO of Triple Nikel and a co-founder of the Black Ops Foundation. Who are all these organizations, you ask? Back in 2020, 4 friends started a clothing company to upend negative stereotypes within the veteran and minority communities. By 2022, we got some juice. By 2023, we got more juice. Later that year, we decided to make a 3-part documentary called Black Ops. Yeah, it's provocative, it gets the people going, but the idea came from our previous careers and experiences in the military. 3 of us from Triple Nikel all served in the U.S. Army Special Forces as Green Berets. To keep it 100, the Special Operations Command, also known as SOCOM, is probably one of the most undiverse organizations in the U.S. military, and it happens to be the one that we came from. You know, home of the Green Berets, Rangers, Navy SEALs, Delta Force, and all of those cool units that they make movies and video games about. Little do people know that SOCOM comprises about 1% of the military's total force, but shoulders the biggest responsibility when enacting foreign policy around the world. Not to mention, in 2023, their budget was $14 billion. So when developing the Black Ops documentary, we relied heavily on our experiences of not seeing many underrepresented service members in the place where we worked. Now I know what you're thinking. So what? And what's that got to do with me? Well, the one thing that many of us in this room have in common is where we are from. A lot of us come from underserved communities, and some of us are not fortunate enough to get out. Fortunately, we did, and we did so in a very unique way. We realized that our pathway was very similar to that of high-performing athletes, entertainers, professionals, and other vocations in high-performing industries. With those observations in mind, we decided to create this roadshow and bring together the community to dispel stereotypes, share their journeys, all with the intentions of leaving someone inspired. Some call us crazy, but our story is being told. Believe it or not, episode 1 is now on Amazon Prime, with 7 more episodes on the way. Plus, we have a book coming out in February 2025. Tonight, you get an opportunity to listen and engage with a Grammy Award-winning artist from the ATL, Killer Mike. Coming in here, you got a chance to vibe with one of the dopest DJs, DJ Baby Drew. Afterwards, you get to laugh with Donnell Rollins. Look, I'm done talking because I think y'all are ready. But before I go, please give a round of applause to our moderator and MC for the evening, Georgia State Representative of House District 62, Tanya Miller.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay, so is this thing on? Everybody can hear me okay? Okay, good. So I am Representative Tanya Miller. I am so happy to be here tonight with you moderating this panel. I want to welcome everyone to the Military Influencer Conference, Black Ops Roadshow. I wanted to make sure I got all of that correct. Off the rip, I think before we even begin, it would behoove me in a room full of veterans to say that I appreciate your service. I thank you for your service. And I imagine that your service was both challenging and deeply meaningful, but also involved a tremendous amount of sacrifice for you and your loved ones. So whether you've been deployed or not, There was a significant amount of time, I'm sure, spent away from your family. So the state of Georgia, of which I am a representative, honors that sacrifice tonight. And I am personally committed to ensuring in my work that we continue to support and recognize your service at all times. So thank you. Thank you. So I wanted to acknowledge one. I think there's one other state representative in here tonight, Representative El-Mahdi Haile, my brother and seatmate. Welcome, my brother, and thank you for supporting this event. And I do also want to thank our sponsor today, National University. Thank you, National University, for making this event possible. So we're going to get started today by introducing this dynamic panel. I have never seen, and I've been to a lot of panels, believe me, I have never seen a panel like this with this diverse, special, unique experience. So we're going to start, ladies first. So Tracy Lloyd, is that music? Tracy Lloyd, our first panelist for the evening, is the epitome of, as they say, black girl magic. She graduated, that's right, yes, that is right. Yes, soak it up, clap, you can. She graduated from West Point Military Academy and is a proud member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Inc. Tracy served honorably in the U.S. Army as an IT specialist and was deployed in Iraq. Following her service, she joined Walmart and rose through the ranks so fast she landed on the cover of Fortune magazine as the face of the new warrior elite. Today, she is co-founder of the tech company Ascendax and leads the Emily J.T. Perez Foundation. Please join me in welcoming Tracy Lloyd.
Thank you, Tanya. Honored to be here.
Thank you. So next we have Leo Dameron. Do we have, by any chance, any Marines in the house? Okay then, all right. So you are not alone, as our next panelist is a former U.S. Marine turned academic advocate for our nation's veterans. Leo oversees strategic veteran and military partnerships all across the southeastern U.S. for National University. We look forward to hearing his perspective tonight. Join me in welcoming Leo. Now, our next panelist, Remo Butler, Brigadier General Remo Butler. I promised myself I will not call him Rambo, although I did tell him I might slip up and do it, and he's okay with it, guys. So if it happens, it happens. He hails from a one-stoplight town called Egypt, Mississippi. The son of a U.S. Army soldier, Remo Butler would follow in his father's footsteps and join the Army as an officer in 1976. 25 years later, Remo would make history by becoming the first black U.S. Army Special Forces officer to make it to the rank of general. Yes. So General Butler was Rambo and Commando in real life before they were movies. And by the way, he is also a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And last but certainly not least, seated to my left is Mike Render, also known as Killer Mike. I feel as if he really needs no introduction. He is a treasured and iconic Atlanta native son. Michael Render has transcended the world of hip hop to become a leader, an actor, an activist renowned for his advocacy on so many issues, including social justice issues, economic empowerment, and his entrepreneurial ventures, including the Swag Shop and Bankhead Seafood, which, by the way, I cannot wait to try. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Michael Render. Okay, so we're going to get right to our questions tonight. The first question is actually going to go to all of the panelists, and we'll start with Tracy and come down in order. It's a softball question, but they will get more challenging, guys. I can promise you
Appreciate
that.
the
You ready?
softball.
I think y'all can handle it, though. All right, so role models play a critical role in shaping our ambitions and the paths we choose in life. Can you each share a bit about who your role models were and how they influenced your journey, especially in the context of your professional careers? Tracy?
Okay, thank you, Tanya. I would say 3 women come to mind. My grandmother, Rosalind Brewer, and Emily Perez. And so when I think of my grandmother, so just to give you context, my grandmother grew up farms of Mississippi. You know, just she had a hard life, a hard life. I remember when I had my firstborn, Michelle, she came up to visit, and she couldn't believe when I told her I had 6 weeks off from maternity leave. First of all, she didn't even know that was a thing, and she said, well, when I gave birth to your father, the next day I was in the field. And I thought, wow. So she had a hard life. And as difficult as her life was, she always found a way to find that crack of sunshine, right? And she would give that sunshine to those around her. And so from her, I would say I learned my resilience. And I also found I can find joy in anything and everywhere. And so I give that to my grandmother. Next, Rosalind Brewer, Walmart. So you all know that was my first job out of the military with Walmart, and she just took me under her wings. It was the first mentor that I had who looked like me, woman, also black. Before that, all my mentors were white men. And so it was a special relationship because she understood all sides of Tracy, and she could advise me on all sides. And to see the way she climbed corporate America, she was able to help me understand how to lead with excellence, lead with empathy, but also as a black woman, it was important that I had P&L responsibility. And she said, you know, it's fine if you want to go into HR, marketing, and all those other areas, just make sure that someone can look at your numbers, right? So if things don't go well, if they don't like you, they can look at your numbers and they have to respect you because of what you deliver to the business. And so my business acumen, I can say that a great part of that, I owe that to Rosalind Brewer. And also she taught me the work-life balance. And again, appreciate all that she shared, and I know we need to go quickly. But lastly, Emily Perez. Emily, we went to West Point together. Emily died in 2006. She was in a convoy distributing medical supplies across Iraq. And she was the lead vehicle, and her Humvee was blown up. Emily had so much promise. We went to West Point together again. When I met her my junior year, she was a freshman, I was like, this is gonna be our first woman president. That's how impressive Emily was. And for her life to get cut short, it made me think differently in terms of what service looks like. So not just, service to our country, yes, but even after the military, how can we still serve? And now serving as the executive director of Emily J.T. Perez, every day, I honor her through the works that we do. And so it's still serving our country, but just serving in a different way.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I guess I'll go with the trite answer, right? My parents, Leo and Adrian Dameron. As any good parents should do, they provide the foundation of who their children will become, right? And it becomes a generational thing that gets passed from there. So from my father specifically, I learned the value and importance of a work ethic, especially being, a brown person growing up in the Bronx, New York, and having to really understand that it takes hard work to really show your value and kind of even the playing field. From my mother, the servant's heart, servant leadership. She had any number of struggles and health issues growing up as a child. And it carried on into her adulthood, and it kind of forced me as a young man into a situation where I became a caregiver and a caretaker for her. And rather than resenting being thrust into that position, it gave me an opportunity to really appreciate, the value of being able to serve someone else. And watching her through cancer, through heart surgeries, through any number of things that she suffered as a result of her systemic lupus, the way that she not only overcame those things, but that she turned that into advocacy for people who suffered from her medical ailments was really what lit the spark in me to do the same for any number of disenfranchised communities, including the military community that we love to serve. Aside from those two, I'd say my uncle Rick Perez would be my final person. He really, I think, instilled in me the value and the ability of seeing people not for who they are within their circumstances, but really seeing at the core of what potential they had. Right? It's such a beautiful and lovely thing when you have that ability to see a person at their core, no matter how low they might be dealing with substance abuse, homelessness, whatever their barrier in this life might be, but seeing who they could become. If we were able to harness that, I think as a society, as a culture, we could really kind of impact some of the things that we're going to talk about. I'm not going to play spoiler, but he taught me the importance of being able to see the best in people, even through the worst of their circumstances.
Thank you.
Test. Okay. I'm going to give you two parts to mentor and influence me. First was my mother and father. They taught me how to be a man, how to stand up on my own 2 feet, how to defend myself. Those tenets have made me successful in life. In the military, when I went in, and you've heard talk about how few minorities there are in special forces. It's true. The first mentor I had, and I'm going to say this, and some people are going to look at me with shock. When I was in special forces, I never had a black mentor. Usually I was the senior black officer there. I never had a black mentor. But my first mentor was a major, tobacco chewing guy from Colorado. He hated everybody equally.
Equally.
He respected your work. And I worked hard, I bust my butt. And one day, I was walking, and he called me. He said, "Hey, come here." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You know, you need to get a master's degree." And I said, I want a degree in special forces. He said, "Shut up, blank, blank, and listen. You need a master's degree." And he walked away from me. Little did I know that once I got that master's degree, the doors that would be open for me. The next mentor I had was he's died now, Major General Sidney Shacknow. He spent time in a prisoner of war camp. He was Jewish in World War II. He made it out, went to Germany, made it to the US, married, went in the military, became a general. He taught me about being an officer. He taught me about taking responsibility. And I went too far. If you worked for me and you did something wrong, I say it was my fault. He brought me in, he said, no. He said, "You need to stop that." He said, "Yes, you're the boss." He said, "You're responsible, but it's not your fault. Don't say that." So I stopped saying that. Then there were several others, all didn't look like me, who taught me and took me under their wings and helped place me in the right positions. Because as we all know, you can be the best you can be, but unless you do the right job, you're not going any further. So I had a lot of mentors in special forces, and I said none of them looked like me, but they were great men.
Thank you.
Thank you. I grew up 3 miles from here, west of here, in a neighborhood called Akari Heights in Adamsville. I'm the product of 2 teenagers having sex and not using birth control. And luckily, my mom's parents were smart enough to know that they should be raising me. So my mother made one of the most difficult decisions any young woman could make at 20 years old. She married my second dad. I'm lucky and that I have two dads, a non-bio and a bio dad. But my grandparents asked my mom, could they raise me? And I felt it was appropriate because my grandmother cooked every day, she cleaned, I didn't have to do much for myself. My mom, it was chores and shit. And my grandparents raised me, and they did an amazing job, and they raised two of my sisters with me, and their whole thing was, we're raising you to be independent. So we would get sent to places like Tuskegee and Eatonton, Georgia, where our family was from. We'd have to actually cut sugar cane and fucking grab eggs and shit out of chickens. That's where we learned like food didn't come from the store. And because of that, me and my sisters both, I always tell people I'm the one that failed. I dropped out of Morehouse to pursue music. My sister graduated Dillard. My other sister became a master beautician. They were the successful ones. I'm the kid that sings and dances for a living, doesn't have much skill. But I appreciate my grandparents because they taught me dignity. They taught me honor, they taught me respect, and my grandfather in particular was my role model. Because Willie Burke Sherwood had a third grade education. His father abandoned his family. He quit to work in a lumber yard. My grandfather quit school in the third grade and worked in a lumber yard to support his two sisters and his mother. He was functionally illiterate, and he raised 3 literate children. He raised 3 children that went on to get degrees or get heralded. He raised people that the world would be proud of, and he gave me a very simple set of rules. Take care of yourself first, because if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of anyone else. Take care of your sisters. Don't embarrass me in your mama's name, and don't embarrass colored folks. And at the time, I didn't know what colored folks was, but he said, now you call yourself black, they used to call you colored. But they were amazing, and I appreciate them. The second role model is a man named Bill Murray, who was a kid who grew up right here on the west side. He was very fair-skinned with that wavy hair, so all of his teachers told him he should go to Morehouse and be a doctor. He chose to go to Morris Brown and become a teacher. And to this day, he teaches us. He makes his old students come learn how to farm from him. He owns a funeral home. He tries to prevent us from going to the funeral home early, and he's just an amazing human being. So Bill Murray deserves it. I think he's a captain. He's the one with the cane and the red jacket. Yeah. So I just want to make sure every gang got a chance to do their call. But there you go. And last but not least, I got to say rest in peace to investigator Richards. Richard Williams. He was an Atlanta City police officer who I met in 1991, and he was paralyzed from the chest down. He had got 2 boys from Washington High School. He had searched them. He had put them in the back of a police car. They were being taken and investigated for something. They produced a handgun, and one of the 19-year-old boys shot him, and he was paralyzed from the chest down. I met him just as they started introducing more police officers into Atlanta City schools, because Atlanta public schools were getting a little rough. It was the middle of the crack era. And I befriended him. He saw, and no one knew at the time, my dad had been a police officer. So I had a chip on my shoulder to show suckers I wasn't no punk. And he met me, and he instantly saw something good in me, and all he did every day of summer school was encourage whatever good he saw in me. And I found out from another officer, and who had known my father also, how he got to be paralyzed. And I remember pulling him to the side, asking him, kids shot you. Why would you be here working with us, and why would you be so kind to us? And I remember him saying to me, if I don't continue to do what I was doing before I was shot, I never believed in what I was doing anyway. And I believe in y'all. And man, wow. I still get goosebumps when I say that, because part of the reason, even as a rapper, that I have been engaged with law enforcement has nothing to do with the fact that my father or my cousins are law enforcement, and everything to do with the empathy that man showed me by example. From being an officer, being shot by children, and choosing the rest of his career to work in capacity to some children to help black children be a part of this system in a way that's more positive than simply being locked up. And I just want to give Investigator Williams his props today, because he was an amazing man. And he left in 2011, and I have missed him greatly.
Thank you. Wow. Wow, all of that was so inspiring. It's important as we go on this conversational journey about opportunity for veterans to really understand the importance of role models and mentors. So thank you all for sharing that with us. I'm going to go to Remo. With my next question, I want to talk a little bit about the historical role of African Americans in the military. African Americans have made significant contributions to the U.S. military since before this country's inception, through World Wars I and II and beyond, often fighting for freedoms abroad that they did not enjoy fully at home. General Butler, considering the historical contributions of African Americans in the military, how do you think their roles and treatment have evolved over the decades? And what can be done to further recognize and honor their legacy?
Thank you for that question. Right now I'm reading, am I on? Right now I'm reading a book. It's called Black Patriots. And it talks about blacks in the Revolutionary War. Many of the blacks fought on the sides of the British because the British said, if you fight for us, we'll give you freedom. The Continental Army didn't want to do that. But still, some, i.e. Crispus Attucks, fought. The Civil War came up. And all the blacks wanted was a chance. Just like James Brown said, open the door, I'll do it myself. And they got a chance to fight. But you remember, before that time, everybody said, oh, they won't fight. They're scared, they won't fight. Well, they were forgetting that back in Africa, these folks were warriors. So what made them think that they wouldn't fight now? So they came and they excelled in the Civil War. And I forgot how many black soldiers won the Medal of Honor in the Civil War. But whatever that number was, you could probably double or triple it as the ones who should have gotten it. After that, you go back, and before we get to World War I, everybody talks about Teddy Roosevelt, San Juan Hill. Read history. The black 10th Cavalry guys made it to the top of San Juan Hill before Roosevelt did. Roosevelt told them, he said, man, you guys did good. When we get back, I'm going to tell everybody about it. When they got back, Roosevelt didn't say anything. Let's go forward. World War I. The British were fighting. The British had folks from the Caribbean fighting for them. But the Americans didn't want to have black soldiers fighting. They said, okay, you can be crewmen on the ship, you can do this, you can do laborers, but you aren't going to fight. Well, finally, they had to bring some in, the Harlem Hellcats. They were some of the most ferocious fighters and spent more time in combat than any other unit. But you don't hear much about them. They don't get their props. Then you fast forward to the Second World War. They said the same thing again. Oh, the blacks won't fight. They're scared. Blacks not going to fight. They're scared. Well, they got over there and they were given the opportunity to fight, and they fought like Mississippi field hands. They fought. Now you go back to the Army War College, which I got to attend. The military sends the creme of the creme to that school. In 1930-something, I don't remember the exact dates, they wrote some papers, articles, on black soldiers and how they should be utilized. And the consensus was, they won't fight. They won't fight. Well, when they brought them in World War II, they fought. When they got to the Korean War, again, they fought. And the Korean War was when it started to integrate. Then you fast forward to Vietnam. They fought, and they fought hard. And I'm going to tell you a little secret I didn't know. When I first went in Special Forces, there were probably more black enlisted soldiers than there are now. And that's a true statement. And one of the things was a swim test. We had to swim a few hundred meters with fatigues and boots on. Yeah. And then we did a water jump in Gatun Drop Zone. And this black sergeant major, he jumped, popped his BCs, floated, and guys pulled him in. And I was curious, like, how did this guy get here and he couldn't swim? So I went over and asked him, I said, Sergeant Major, I said, tell me something. How long you been in SF? Sir, I was in SF since 1965. And you can't swim? Nope. I said, how did you get in Special Forces and can't swim? And he looked at me and he said, sir, when I signed up, if you could squeeze a trigger, you could be in it. You see, so what I'm showing you is the rules change. The rules can change depending on what you want and what you need at that time. So in all that time, even today, as you see on TV, a lot of the older soldiers are coming back to get their Medal of Honor. And one of them, Colonel Davis, Paris Davis. I wrote some stuff for him because he got the Medal of Honor, and the people that he fought with in Vietnam stayed on it for years, 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years, to get him that award. And sometimes people can't write, and sometimes people don't want to write real well. So times have changed. They're better than they were. But are they where they should be? And we all know the answer to that, and the answer is a big no. They're not where they should be. And what it's going to take is us, and when I say us, I mean us minorities, doing things and proving, because we always got to prove that we are better. You know, and that was one of the lessons that my father taught me. He told me, he said, son, you got to be twice as good as my neighbor over there to get the job. And the military is the same way. You got to be good to survive. You have to be twice as good to keep on pressing.
Thank you. Wow. That was amazing. Thank you. So just in talking a little bit, as we kind of go through this journey about access and placement for Black and brown and historically disadvantaged minorities, just in success period, in the military and beyond, this is a question for everybody. We know that access and opportunity are crucial for success. How can we ensure better access and placement for Black and brown individuals in various career fields, including those less traditionally considered, like entrepreneurship, certain segments of the military, like special forces? Why don't you take this one first, Michael?
I married the right woman. You know.
Okay, that's a good start. Smart man.
I married the granddaughter of the lady who ran the shot out. So my wife was interested in numbers, and and not to segregate us off too much, but Black women are amazing, and I gotta say, Black women are amazing. You gotta get my money after we're done. I saw my great-grandmother and great-grandfather have an equal partnership in their marriage, to the point, you know, you hear tales of when women couldn't own property and things of that nature. I have the deed when they bought their farm. It was signed by N.H. Blackman and Truzella Blackman. That's both them. I run my marriage because I don't run my marriage. I'm in a partnership with a woman who's smart. And one of the smartest business decisions I made was to do business with her. And there are a lot of people out there that work like that I clap for. Some people on TV you argue about Kurt and Rashida, but Kurt and Rashida have had a successful partnership for 20, 25 years. They were the people I looked at as an early entertainer coming up, and I watched him pour into his wife's career. I look at Candy and Todd. I watched Candy be an entrepreneur in terms of being an entertainer, attempting, and when she married her husband, you could tell her husband was a part of the missing piece because their empire has exploded. So I look for people around me to be an example. My grandparents have been an example. So in matters of business, I knew that I was good at making money. I wanted to be better about growing money. You know, entertainers will go out and will make money, and then we'll go have too much fun and spoil it. But my wife has helped me make some smart decisions. One was we bought an apartment building not even 2 miles from here. I wanted to buy a Demon, and I already owned a Hellcat. Probably not the wisest decision. Before we even touched the apartment building, it tripled in value. And she's the person, when people come to me and say, I'm glad you're opening Bankhead Seafood, it was a 50-year-old restaurant. It was owned by a Black woman named Miss Helen Harden. I don't know if the Black woman would have sold me and T.I. the restaurant had it not been for my wife and a woman named Crystal Peterson, who's married to T.I.'s friend and business partner. If those two women hadn't shown up and put on a dynamic performance in terms of assuring her, we're not going to drive your business under, we're not going to knock it down and just build apartments, we're going to grow this legacy, I don't know if we'd have it. So I appreciate her for that and for having the foresight. So in terms of entrepreneurship, what I've learned is, Mike, you have a great vision, you have the wherewithal and the balls to invest in things, you even have the vision. but it's going to take a team of people. And whether it is my executive assistant, Rhonda, my counsel, my guy, Bear, my DJ who's with me here today, my man Swift, who's like a big brother, I understand that there are people who are better at things than me that I need to have around me. And around me is a team of brilliant people. I don't try to do it all by myself. In entrepreneurship, I think that we can scale a business that does really well for us, but in order to make that business 5, 10x, you're gonna need more people that are smarter about it than you are. So what I've learned is that I don't wanna be the smartest person in the room. I don't wanna be the expert on anything. I want people around me that are smarter. I want people around me that know how to get to where I wanna go, to take advice from those people and to take it seriously, and to just put one foot in front of the other every single day. I started the Swag Shop barbershops actually about 12 years ago. I just bought them off Craigslist. I saw a barbershop. I decided it was cheap enough for me to buy. I sold a car, I bought it. I told Shay I bought a barbershop. She didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. Because she was like, your dumb ass could have just let them go out of business and just bought their lease. And I was like, shit. But over the course of the last 11 years, we've built a brand. That brand is the Swag Shop Barbershops, the Shave, Wash, and Groom Shop. That barbershop is the first barbershop in a Coliseum in which you can watch the games, get a cut. By the spring of next year, we'll be rolling out a product line. We have 3 shops successful. We're going to grow into 5 and 10 and more shops. And unless I trusted the people I hired, unless I trusted the barber, unless I trusted the co-owner Shay, I wouldn't have been where I am. Unless I did that with Bankhead Seafood, I wouldn't have been where I am. So for me, it's all about partnership. It's all about resources. It's all about understanding what you're good at, what you're not good at it, and putting that team of people around you. And it is also about getting elected officials and getting the business community to understand that we are worth investing in. And we need access to capital. I hated to see that white guy sued essentially the government from giving grants exclusively to black women, because that made me, that's like, man, if we not getting in, how we getting in? Even in the Bible, it say you need a virtuous woman that know how to stack bread, sow shit, and sell it. So for me, I think as the black community, and just working class community, period, because to me it didn't matter if you came up in Cabbagetown or Adamsville, and Atlanta people know what that means when I say those 2 neighborhoods. Working class people deserve an opportunity to have their ideas infused with capital and grow. If we allow mega corporations to own everything, this country will not be what all of you all has fought for, and that's a place of opportunity. Promise is not all of us will win, but the promise should be that all of us have opportunity. So in my business endeavors, what I've done is learn teamwork is the best work. It'll make a dream work. And we must be able to put pressure on legislators and bigger businesses to invest capital into the people that are coming out of these communities to start new businesses.
Absolutely. Preaching. Tracy, can you talk a little bit about the tech space?
It's a little difficult to follow. Is this on? Okay. It's a little difficult to follow behind that.
I know. I'm going to let him go last. I'm going to keep him last, y'all.
Tanya, your question was 2-part, right? It was access as well as placement. So if I can tackle the placement piece. When I left the military and transitioned from the military, went into corporate America, I came through this program with Walmart. So Walmart had all the right intentions. Let me start with that. They had about, it was maybe 100, almost close to probably 150 junior military officers that they recruited at once, right? So they were building more stores than they were developing the talent to run those stores. And so they had this novel idea, let's recruit proven leaders. So they went to the military and they said, we can teach them the business. So we could teach them the business and get them ready to take on our stores. And so again, they had all the best intentions. Now, when we talk about placement, so they brought us all in across the U.S. and stuck us in these stores and expected the talent in the stores to train us. That talent literally declared war on all the veterans. Why? Because Walmart didn't do a great job of change management, right? They didn't explain to them that these veterans that are coming in, they're not taking your jobs, right? We're just growing, we're just building these stores quickly. And so if we don't want everything to fold under, we've got to build talent, and we need your help to get them ready, right? So that we can continue to grow as a company. So that piece was missing. And so within 1 year, that 150 dwindled down to less than 40. And so when we talk about placement, it's important if you're in corporate America, if you're hiring veterans, ensure that the body is ready for the organ, okay? Because the organ, I mean, honestly, the body rejected the organ. That was our experience. And so you have to make sure culturally that people understand who veterans are, the value that the veterans bring, what is that value proposition, and to ensure that it is a welcoming environment, for all. So that'd be one thing with placement. The other part with placement is you have to understand when you get someone from the military, understand what they bring. And oftentimes, we get a bad rap as veterans that we don't stay long, right? That our attrition is high. You know why? Because 9 times out of 10, we're hired to do something that's beneath our potential. And so if we're even if you're not in HR, you can go, it's okay, sis, I feel you. It's okay to go in and talk to HR and say, hey, do you all have any applications? Can I help go over them with you? Can I help explain what this person's capability is? And so we all have that ability to lend our expertise and our knowledge to ensure the veterans that are coming into corporate America are being placed well. And so that's something that we can all take back and help our companies do better. Last, the piece about access, Tanya, I would say access is just the beginning, right? Preparedness, that's the true key for unlocking potential. And so we can't complain about today's workforce if we're not doing something, if we're not working with our youth to get them prepared for the workforce of the future. And so I would say we need more companies, we need more nonprofits, organizations to really get behind and rally behind our youth. We owe them the skills, the exposure, right? The mindset. With TikTok and Instagram, what that's doing to our kids, there's damage there. And so we owe to pour into them, seeds that's going to serve them well later. And just to give, a little props to what we do at Camp Emily's Way, we take Black and Latino middle school age girls and we put them through, we have them for 24/7 for a week at Camp Rutledge, in Rutledge, Georgia, at Camp Twin Lakes. And we have West Point female cadets come and they serve as our camp counselors. And we do intensive leadership development. Within that leadership development, we're helping them to see themselves differently, right? We also are exposing them to jobs that they normally wouldn't have exposure to. We had those young ladies building robots. We had them coding their robots. Before that, we did a class of leadership on what are stereotypes, right? And some of the stereotypes that they shared, that girls can't code, girls aren't good at math. Well, we had those babies coding, building robots, doing all those things. And they're like, wow, we can do this. And so that's a way that we were showing them, areas that they may not think of. STEM, we were opening up to them, having them to dream bigger. And also soft selling West Point and the military, because those young girls were leaving our camp and they were going, some were going to air assault school, some of them were going to, they're going to jump school. And so all of those things are how you inspire youth, but you can't change the workforce, right? You can't complain about the workforce if you're not looking to those youth that are coming right. They're going to be our future workforce, and we all have to work together to deposit into them. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Leo, I actually want to ask you a related question based on something Tracy just said. So numerous studies report, or I should say highlight, the unique challenges that former military service members face when transitioning into entrepreneurship, specifically. According to the Small Business Administration, veterans often struggle with accessing capital, navigating civilian business networks, and translating military skills into sort of business acumen. Considering your experience with military and veteran students at National University, what have you found to be the most effective strategies or resources in helping former military service members transition into successful entrepreneurship?
From my perspective, the answer is twofold. So first, and it's something you touched on, the preparedness and exposure piece. I think it's critical that higher education, academia partners with industry as well as with military. It has to be a cohesive, holistic effort to ensure that service members, before they transition, before they get out and become veterans, they have the opportunity to receive that exposure as early in their transition process as possible, right? Waiting until the last 3, 6 months, even a year before they get out of the military to try to facilitate everything that you just outlined in terms of being able to understand what is out there, what is available to them. It's just not enough time to ensure that they get that exposure to understand all the different aspects of and industries that they could work within, right? Again, thinking about my own experience, at the time I had visions of doing the 20, 30-year career. Life happened, and I was suddenly within 6 months forced to get out of the military, right? It's very drastic mental shift, let alone an actual physical and logistical one, right? And it's not a unique circumstance for many service members. So part of that is what led me kind of to this point today, right? Being able to navigate my own transition and stumble through that process and kind of figure it out and wing it on my own because I simply didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what resources, what nonprofits, what was available to me. And coming from a workforce development background, I was able to kind of transition that piece, right? So having gone through my own stumbles, I decided to kind of pay it forward and realize that there was a passion there for helping folks to navigate that transition before they got to the point of homelessness and substance abuse and some of these major barriers that prevent folks from being able to realize their hidden potential. So again, we have to start that process as early as possible. And I know sometimes it seems like an uphill battle, right? DOD, government, their mission. Many of us in this room, we understand the nature of that, but there has to be a desire to develop people for the good of the institution on the military side, but also for the good of the individual. As you build your individuals, whether it's military, industry, you're going to get them to produce the results that you want them to do, and they'll be able to pay it forward in such a way that they can develop others to do the same. That in and of itself will maintain retention within the military. So the arguments about, we don't want to let them transition early because they're gonna use that to get out, it's nonsense. Don't believe that lie. Okay, so that's the first part, preparedness as soon as possible before transition. Now, post-transition or during that process of transition, I cannot harp on the importance of mentorship. And I'm not just talking about, a variety of these platforms that you'll find online or otherwise. Not that there's anything at all wrong with them. I volunteer a lot of my time serving in those mentorship capacities with those organizations. But I mean mentorship in a real hand-to-hand, face-to-face environment, right? And I say face-to-face, whether it's virtual, in person, whatever the nature of it looks like, but there has to be a real mentorship relationship forged, not just, hey, I'm transitioning and I have this interest, what can you do for me? It has to be a mutually beneficial relationship in place. There has to be real open and honest dialogue and conversations between the mentor outlining what opportunities are available to that individual. And this is especially true when it comes to entrepreneurship. A lot of veterans, a lot of folks, they have that entrepreneurship bug, but they don't realize it. They have a business mindset because of all the skills that they've learned during their time in the military, but they don't know how to process it. So finding that right mentor that can guide them towards the resources, that can guide them towards the business of their dreams that they didn't even realize they had. I use myself as an example. I never thought of myself as a business owner. I recently just started my nonprofit a couple of weeks ago alongside my wife, founded to help give back to the homeless community in my area, many of whom are veterans, right? So never something that I envisioned for myself. But I say that not for the pat on my back, but because it's something I never saw for myself. So if I see those opportunities myself, I want to be able to pay it forward to other folks who don't know, again, what they don't know. So it's the education piece and syncing up with the correct people who are going to be able to help you navigate those paths in a real meaningful way, not just going to the networking event and interacting in kind of an arbitrary manner and making those meaningless connections. It's finding those real people who are going to actually be intentional and deliberate about giving you the pathways that you need to find whatever that success looks like in the entrepreneur world.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that.
Do you mind if I interject?
No, please do.
As I'm sitting here and I'm thinking just about what wonders the military has given us. There's a young man I follow, and I'm just pointing you this way because his name is Aristotle, And if you guys follow Aristotle_investments, in the military, he's a kid figuring out, I don't want to be poor, and I don't have a 20-year run in me. He starts cutting hair in any job he can do while he's in the military, figuring out what you have to invest by reading books, by finding people to mentor him. And he's one of the most successful young entrepreneurs in the city. It's Aristotle_investments. He was a kid that was in the Army, and he's currently online. He's teaching kids how to invest. He's really mentoring people because he's not charging them for advice. I tell people all the time, mentors have an exchange for you. People who consultants charge you. And he's been very good about mentoring a lot of people. So I wanted to give him his shout outs because I didn't think he was here today. But if you guys got an IG, follow Aristotle_investments. He's been an amazing part. I've never done any business with him, but I've seen him do a bunch of good business with people. And he's one of those people, to me, that the military instilled the discipline in it took to sharpen an entrepreneur's knife.
Absolutely. Let's stick with that. Yeah, Scott for that. Let's stick with that. And I want to go to General Butler, just in talking about success in the military as we're talking about how we translate that outside of the military. But I want to go back to a famous paper that you wrote in 1999 entitled Why Black Officers Fail, which has been referenced in numerous published academic and military studies. You, in that paper, provided a critical analysis that has since guided many Black military officers across all services. Could you just share with the audience a little bit some of the key factors identified in your research that contribute to the challenges faced by Black officers in the military, and how have your findings influenced military leadership and policies over the years?
That's a long question.
I know. Is it too long? Can we shorten it?
I was in the War College, and I asked myself, how did I get here? Because it's a very small percentage of military officers that go to the War College.
Yes.
And I had time to go back in my mind and think about some of the other officers, Black officers, Latin officers that I served with, and what made me better than them. And after a lot of thought and consideration, what made me better was nothing. I was mentored by great people, and I had help placing me in the right jobs. So I thought about it, and I said, why don't these other people, these other Black and Latin officers, get the same thing? Well, I'm gonna tell it to you. Some of the stuff is not politically correct, and some people aren't gonna wanna hear what I gotta say, but I'm gonna say it. Many times, and I always say, take the hard jobs. Many times, a lot of us want to take the get-over job. So we can go back and tell our buddies, oh man, I'm at the club every day at this time, and yeah, I work here, but I'm getting over. Well, you might be getting over right now, but down the road, it's gonna come back and get you. The other part was communication. Communication is a very important thing. A lot of times, minorities only like to communicate with minorities, and we all know that's a fact. And I was talking to my wife about it, and I said, let me tell you something. When I was in the military, I said, the only thing a Black guy could normally tell me was where the club's at and which girls are hot.
Oh.
Now, if you went back, and I went back to my white counterparts, they were telling me what jobs are coming open, which commands are changing, who needs what. They were also the ones who were going to whisper into their friend's ear, hey, that guy over there is pretty good, you might want to look at him. And until we learn how to better assimilate ourselves and communicate, you're not going to be successful. It's just a fact of life. The other thing was, the big army, how did they like that paper? I guess that's the question. It had mixed results. There were some people who came to me, some minorities in fact, who came to me angry and said, you really believe that? And I said, yeah, if I didn't believe it, I wouldn't write it. Well, one of two things, either they had a sterling career or they were in denial. I don't know. But those are the things. The military, I got calls from officers who asked me, what do I need to do? How can I get my minority officers more involved? And they listened. and they executed. But then you also had the ones who really didn't care. And they thought that this was just a glitch, and it too shall pass. Well, in 20-some years, it's still here. So it's still working for some people.
Thank you for that. Clap for that. Thank you for that perspective. I'm gonna bounce around a little bit so that we can close this out on time, but I wanna go to Tracy and ask her about an issue that is really important to me, supporting women veterans. Data shows that even though women veterans are a small percentage of the overall veteran population, their rate of homelessness is disproportionately high. Women veterans experience homelessness at a higher rate than both male veterans and non-veteran women. The VA reports veterans are more than twice as likely to be homeless with female veterans as their male counterparts, often due to issues like military sexual trauma and unemployment. Can you just share a little bit about your philanthropic work and how you are addressing the unique challenges that are faced by women veterans and paying particular attention to mental health and homelessness?
Yes, Tanya, this is it's definitely not an easy topic to discuss. I want to be clear, I am not a specialist on homelessness. What we do with the foundation, we focus on the mental health side for women veterans. But it is well documented, right, that mental health contributes, is a great contributor to homelessness. So that link has been, we know that that link exists. And when you look at women in the military, 1 in 3, right? 1 in 3, every woman who has served has had some type of sexual trauma her time serving. That's a lot, right? Like we can look at women in this room, right? 1, 2, 3, boom. 1, 2, 3, boom. Like that's how big that number is. And when we're looking at the VA understands that this is an issue, and they're doing work, but it's not enough. It's not enough. And so for the foundation, with the Emily J. T. Perez Foundation, we do resilience boot camps, and we do them across the U.S. once a quarter. And we understand that when you experience trauma, you experience it through your 5 senses. For instance, if a woman was raped, if the assailant had on a cologne, if she smells that cologne again, she can be triggered, right? And so we experience trauma through the 5 senses, and the body keeps score, the body keeps record. And so we understand that your 5 senses also serve as a pathway to healing. And so in our resilience bootcamp, it's built around the 5 senses. And what we do, we're not treating women, we're not diagnosing women. We are giving women veterans tools, so in moments that they can use, right? And so, for instance, we introduce mindfulness, meditation, the importance of journaling, right? How certain music at certain hertz, how it can calm you, right? Just different modalities of healing. And so when the ladies leave us, they also have a roadmap for themselves as they go on their personal journey for healing. Another piece that I would like to tap on is that the military still doesn't understand how big that piece is, Tanya. And so if, less than 60% of women use VA, and if the VA is saying, that 1 in 3 women have had some type of sexual trauma, that's only scratching a part of it. And so when you look at PTSD, when you look at sexual trauma, it's very difficult, and you're transitioning, right? So you're transitioning a new job, maybe a new state, right? All these changes that are happening, and if mentally you're not fit, you could understand how that mental deterioration could lead to the inability to hold jobs, what could lead to homelessness. And so we need to do a better job of not just putting Band-Aids, especially when our veterans come home, because that number jumps up when we look at women veterans who have deployed. Me personally, you know, when I would go to the showers in Iraq, I had my 9mm in my shower caddy. Like, it's real. You know, we were fighting on the outside and we were fighting on the inside. And so just understand that this is an issue. It isn't talked about much, but I would implore us all to get a better understanding of that and have patience with women in the workplace, and also, you know, make space. Sometimes it's just making space where women can come together, have those conversations. Brothers, we love you, but it's something special when women can just be in the room together. And what I love about what we do with the boot camps is that it's just space. It's space that we hold for each other. We cry, you know, we laugh, but we also make sure that we are pointed in the direction of places that we know will take care of us, but also keep that quiet. That's another reason why a lot of women don't report these sexual, when they have these encounters in the military, is because they don't want to be labeled. And then also, oftentimes, the people who have done it, it's within that chain of command that they're doing the investigations. And so we just need to do a much better job in pushing policy to break that up so that more women feel comfortable coming forward so that we can break the cycle.
Definitely. Thank you. That's powerful. Thank you. Very strong. Okay, we got 2 minutes left, so I had to cut through some stuff, but I want to end with this last question to Michael, and then we'll open it up for, I think, do we have time for questions from the audience? Maybe, we'll see. So just in 2 minutes, Michael, you know, your work, your body of work spans across music, business, and community activism. With so many military servicemen and women opting for careers in law enforcement after their military service, and with your own personal experience with family members in law enforcement and mentors in law enforcement, how do you think we successfully bridge the trust gap between the police and Black communities, especially considering the unique perspectives that Black veterans bring to law enforcement?
I think that just let me first of all let me acknowledge the white folks in this room, because a lot of time that we understand that we are in a war, or Black people are pitched we're in a war. Well, you don't win a war without allies. So I want to acknowledge that there are a lot of white servicemen and women in this room, probably more diverse than a lot of other rooms. And I think if more white kids knew Crispus Attucks was the first to die in the Revolutionary War, we wouldn't be calling it CRT, we'd just be calling it American history.
Right.
And so I appreciate you guys for being here and being in solidarity with your Black soldiers. I'd like to say that in terms of law enforcement, that it's good for every American to have a healthy distrust of the state. That's just what it is. We are given constitutional rights, and when a cop asks you a question, it's not because they're trying to reinforce those rights. They're trying to get you to build a case against yourself. I don't give a shit if that's a DUI roadblock or murder. So it's good to have a healthy distrust. If you want to know where I learned that from, my dad, who was a policeman. He told me the same thing my mother, who was a criminal, told me: shut the fuck up and wait till we get there with the lawyer. I was given a story when I realized that this was military, and I want to say, man, the military's done good for my little nephew who just went in the Navy. Thank him. For my brother-in-law, who's National Guard. Thank him for his service. Many of my uncles and stuff, but there's a friend of mine, my wife's in here. I invited her down, and I realized, I said, come check it out. Based on a story she told me. She went into the military because someone was stalking her. She was like, this nigga was gonna kill me. So I went in the Army. And she told me the story of her and a white girl getting in an argument and a damn near or near a fight. And her drill sergeant, or her instructor, was a Black woman. And she said she punished the shit out of me. Worked the shit out of me, and afterwards gave me a stern talking to that helped explain to me that it wasn't that she was angry with me, but she didn't want me to waste my opportunity and get kicked out. And I think a lot of times we don't teach our children and one another to survive the encounter. Policemen impinge on your rights. A lot of them don't know what rights you have and don't have. You know, sometimes it's a 6-week course. They don't know the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth amendment. And a lot of times when you're invoking your right, if you're going to be detained, when they detained me in February, I just shut the fuck up. I guess you're taking me. I didn't want to argue and fuss and fight because I didn't want to further the distrust and I didn't want to put myself under the ground. I think a healthy distrust of the state is necessary. But Americans, we have to understand that on the other side of that badge is an American, and on the side of the badge that's not in a uniform is an American. And we have to dedicate ourselves as communities to servicing our community. And what I mean by that is, at the same time, Investigator Williams was giving me empathy, love, and compassion, the Red Dogs were in Allen Temple kicking our black asses. Because they were a drug unit and the community had got tired of the boys hanging in front of stores, selling petty drugs, and they unleashed the dogs on us, literally and figuratively. But with that said, a lot of those officers who weren't paramilitary like in a mind state, who weren't white or others, who were black officers would pull us to the side and said, look, we don't want to kick your little black ass, but we will. And here are the rules as they go. And we built a relationship with a lot of those officers that was tense at times, but that was honest and came from a real place. I've always felt comfortable in Atlanta that I'll survive the encounter. And this doesn't say every time because the officers look like me. They went to the schools my mom and dad went to. They knew the neighborhoods they were in. So they weren't in this perpetual fear that would put them in a position to hunt me, to want to kill me. They knew they were dealing with a little knucklehead kid and not necessarily mass murder. So even though they were hard, I was treated in a way I felt like I'd survived. And I'd just like to say, in terms of hiring police officers, you should make sure that police officers who work in the city can live in that city, meaning 0 to 1% home loans. You should make sure that the people that are policing that city come from that city, from that community, or communities like them. We should always be in a constant state of organizing and learning. So I would like to see in Atlanta, I don't know if you can stop Cop City. I don't know once $100 million gets pumped into something, you're gonna stop it. But I do know Atlanta used to have one of the strongest community review boards in the nation, and it needs to be brought back. Regular citizens who are not affiliated with law enforcement need to have the power to be on a board that could snatch a road cop off the streets and send their ass a-walking. Because we don't need to further exasperate the distrust of the state and the people. So a healthy distrust of the state is necessary. Review boards in which citizens have the power to de-escalate and snatch road cops off the streets is necessary. And a constant engagement of mid-term elections, meaning when you elect your prosecutors, your judges, when the mayors get elected and they get this appointed chief, need to be paid more attention to versus the national soap opera of who's gonna win, Dallas Cowboys or Washington Redskins. So I would simply say, hire policemen that are from communities or communities like that. If Atlanta's 54% black, I expect our police force to be. If Detroit is 84% black, then goddamn it, why isn't the police force like that? Or allied with people who understand being black. From every soldier I've known in my life, they've told me when we're fired upon, race is out the door. And we're just there together, fighting, trying to make it through that moment. And I think that the community starts to, or police need to start looking at the community that way. There's crime happening, but we're in this together. I am not your natural enemy because you're pulling me over, and it is good to have an unhealthy distrust of the state, so don't mind my attitude. I'm going to work on correcting that, but I need you to understand that I've had bad experiences with badges and uniforms, and we have to get better training to communicate between the two so that my speeding ticket just becomes a speeding ticket and not an investigation for a murder from the state.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mike, Butler? I'm in 100% agreement with you, but one thing that has troubled me for years, for some reason in minority communities, we teach our children they don't want to be policemen. Yeah. And I've heard it more times than I care to. I'm not going to be no cop. And we live in Tampa. The Tampa Police Department and Sheriff's Department is always looking for good people, always. But sometimes you go and you talk to a guy and you say, what are you doing? I'm out here hustling. He wouldn't know hustling if he tripped over it. You know, get you a job that you can retire with a nice pension in 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, support your community. Like Mike said, find guys who live out there. They already know the people. They know who the criminals are. So they're going to be there, and they're going to do what? Give you a fair deal. I have a saying. I say, if you go in the kitchen and there's no lights, you're going to see roaches. But when you turn that light on, what do the roaches do? They scatter. And if we had more minority policemen, that's more light.
Thank you for that. Let's give it up. So we're a little beyond our time, so I'm gonna wrap now. I just got the memo to wrap, but what we heard just now was a really extensive and authentic conversation about the challenges that not only face the military, but face our communities, because veterans are members of our communities, important members of our communities. We're talking about diversity and diversifying institutions that are American institutions so that they look like America. And that's what I heard tonight, trying to talk about those barriers and trying to figure out ways to overcome them, but first you gotta acknowledge them. So I am grateful for the conversation that we had. This has been amazing. I want to thank every panelist who took time. I wish I had like 5 other questions, but they were too damn long, as General Butler told me, so I gotta give that note to myself. But again, I think this was an amazing panel. I'm grateful, so please give it up for all of our panelists. Yeah, come it up. They deserve it. Please.